Hey, all you Splinterheads, welcome back. Bronze Dragon here saying thanks for dropping by. I appreciate your time. In this episode tonight, first of all, if my lighting looks weird, it's because my main light went out. So I'm using my desk light as my regular desk lamp as backup lighting. So with that said, this is going to be the third video in my series to finish out this series on focused towards people getting started in the game and looking for some good value cards to buy or rent. So with that said, we've already covered, I'm just checking out my levels here. We've already covered commons and rares, okay, in the first two videos. And for the most part, a lot of the commons and rares were advised buys for new players because they would, first of all, they're relatively cheap compared to the rest of the cards. And second of all, they form a good kind of base layer of cards you can play with. Now, what we're going to go into today is I'm going to cover legendaries and epics today. Okay, I'm going to cover them together because number-wise there aren't as many as commons and rares. There's going to be very few buy recommendations in the epics and legendaries due to the price point. When you're first getting into the game, you may be shocked by the price point on the epics and legendaries, but I'm here to tell you that time-wise, over the last few years, these cards are at a pretty low price, but from a new player's perspective, I can see where they would be kind of expensive looking. So most of them are going to be I'm going to advise renting them to use until you get a firm hold on which ones you like using, which ones you can use to good effect. And then I would say think about going ahead and buying them. They're pretty decently cheap to rent now. There are some on the low price side that I consider very good buy options as well. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's go into the market, and just like I did for the last couple videos, I'm going to advise going into the Chaos Legion set and selecting core, reward, promo, and rift watchers. And we will go ahead and just select epics and legendaries for this time. The first thing I want to point out is there's going to be a set of epic summoners, and there's going to be a set of legendary summoners. Now, for the most part, the legendary summoners are really nice and powerful, but they're also expensive. And they also tend to not be really playable in lower mana matches because they cost more mana to get out there. So they are more powerful. They just take a little bit more mana to get out. And generally speaking, you're not going to be playing them in like low level, like bronze matches. That's arguable because some people have some very good combinations where they take like a 6 mana summoner and pair it up with 1 or 2 other cards and it becomes quite powerful. But I'm just kind of making a blanket statement saying when you are playing a low mana match, 15 and less, you're probably going to go with a lower mana summoner so you can get more monsters out. Now, there's also a set of summoners that are under the epics that are pretty nice summoners. Now, they're a little bit more expensive than the rare ones we talked about in the last episode, but some of them are worth considering when you go into buying the summoners for your different splinters, considering both and seeing which you want to go with. So let's go ahead and just start with fire. Now in fire, the two summoners that I was talking about would be Skargor is the epic and Conqueror Jasek, which would be the legendary. Okay. Now Conqueror Jasek is a very strong rental. Okay. He's a strong guy. But as you can see, it's $9 per BCX. Which is per copy of the card. Now, Skargor is a strong buy thought. You know, if you want to think about buying her versus, let's go ahead and go summoner, and then let's go and add rare, versus Tarsa. Now, Tarsa is a lot cheaper. So 3, 4, a little bit more than 4 times what Tarsa is. And Tarsa brings +1 to melee, +1 health. Skargor brings enrage. So I think she's stronger overall, but she's a little bit more harder to learn how to use versus Tarsa is kind of a blanket, kind of pretty decent across the board. But it's definitely worth thinking about when you're considering buying your summoners. Okay. Now, as far as the rest of the cards go, I would recommend a buy on Lava Launcher. It's cheaper. It's one of the highly printed rewards cards, but it makes a good because it is range and it can be used close range, which means in the first slot, which generally they cannot be used or they cannot fire. They can be used in that slot, but generally they can't fire. So that's a strong buy for me. The rest are generally rental recommendations. Countess Sanash, Grum, Fireblade, Scorch Fiend, all strong rentals, like I said, until you get to the point where you know which ones you're good at playing, because each one of these are going to be around more than $1 per BCX. Some of these are decent cards, but once again, as I said in my last video, as you go up in rarity, they get stronger, and a lot of times they cost more mana to get out, but there's kind of more limited situations you can get them and put them into, and those situations you learn as you're playing the game. So now that's kind of a blanket statement because there are some cards that you can use in a lot of different situations, like Scorch Fiend. It's great to put out there whenever you just need that one extra card. It doesn't cost you any mana. Very popular. Grum's pretty decently popular. The only ones they're all pretty decent, and that's why they make epic and legendaries. So like I said, the strong buy here is Lava Launcher, and I would also consider Skargor. The first one I may think about buying as well. I really have a fondness for Countess Sanash. She's a really good card. But like I said, a lot of these cards, especially legendaries, it's better to get in and rent them, use them for a little while, very cheap to rent, figure out which ones you want to buy. Let's switch over to water. Okay, so water, we have two summoners to talk about. We have the legendary is Possibilis, very strong, but once again, a little bit more than $10 per BCX, and Aquatis. Aquatis is not as strong a call for your first water summoner as, let's bring up the rare summoners, Kelia Frindle. I'm going to pick Kelia over Aquatis all day long. Not that he's terrible, but Kelia is the best one out of the rare set of Chaos Legion summoners. Very popular to play. Okay, now Possibilis, very strong card as well. But once again, it's one of those rental things. If you want to, rent it for a little while, think about it. But as far as your base level water summoner, I would go in with Kelia. Okay. Now, as far as the rest of the ones, I really like Narissa. Wave Brood is really strong. Tidebiter is a strong buy. Very cheap. Great card. Djinn O'Shaughnessy, it's a little bit under $1 per BCX now. But I'm going to say Djinn O'Shaughnessy is a strong buy all day long with me. Okay. Great card. You can use him in almost, 75% of your water hands. You can probably slip him in there. Okay. We've got River Hellendale. He's a good, strong rental. He is eventually a good buy card after you go ahead and use him for a little while. Bakjira, great rental card, great tank. Once again, we have the Torrent Fiend, 0 mana. Good, strong buy down the road. I don't think you necessarily need it in bronze, but it is going to be one of those things that strengthen your hand. As we're going through these epics and legendaries, you're not really going to hear me say there's a bad one. There's a reason why they're called epics and legendaries, okay? So Wave Brood's a great pick. Everybody loves it. Don't have a whole lot of experience with Runemaster Kai, but it's a very strong card, and hence it's about $10 per BCX. One of the newest cards on the block is Seawreck, and it just came out. Remains to be seen, but looks like a lovely card. Great tank right up front. Big old tank, and love that. So I love the sea-related cards. So with that said, I would say the strong buys here is Djinn O'Shaughnessy, Tidebiter, and Narissa. Narissa's a good buy as well. The rest are good rentals until you actually want to save up and buy some more. Bakjira is a very strong card. A lot of people use it. Very strong tank. And River Hellendale, strong card as well. So let's switch over to Earth. Now the summoners here. The legendary is Immortalis, proving to be very formidable. A very strong summoner. Takes a little bit more mana to get out there, but these legendary summoners have 3 different powers, so it makes them a little bit stronger. Fernheart, also a great call. Okay, but once again, $1.85 per BCX. Easier to get out. Totally different strategy. Okay, with range. Okay, so but very strong card. So these two, and I talk about the summoners right up front because you're really going to have to. That's going to be really the first mountain you get over, is deciding which summoners you want to go with. So if you decided to go ahead and go with the rare summoners because they're a little bit cheaper, that's fine. Go ahead and get into playing the game, rent these guys out, play with them for a little while, see if you like them, and then decide whether you're going to invest in them. Okay. Now, the strong buys from this, it's a little bit harder. Of course, we have the Fungus Fiend. Once again, might want to rent it for once in a while. I don't really think you need the Fiends in bronze. Did they help? Probably. But they're $1.60 per BCX, so it's something you might want to think about. Queen Mycelia is a good card to rent out. Jin Bilka is a good strong buy at 85 cents. Grun, good solid tank. Like I said, a lot of these are rentals. But the main thing is getting in there, using them, and figuring out which splinters you like to play and how you're going to play them, and using that rental right up front, which would cost you less than a couple bucks a week to rent out a bunch of cards, and figuring out what you want to buy instead of getting in and soaking up a lot of money and spending a lot of money on cards and then figuring out you don't really like them. So let's go ahead and go to death next. Okay, so your summoners here. Waka Spirit Blade, way too expensive. That's a whole different conversation. Just mark him off. Astral Entity is legendary here. It's good. It's proving to be from a subscriber I talked to that just bought this a few weeks ago. He really likes it. But once again, it's up there above $8 per BCX. So that's one of those ones you might want to think about renting first. Okay. Now, the Epic is Dalan. And this one is, I think, considered mostly, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. I think most everybody out of this set considers this the weakest. However, you might want to think about it. I still would say, once again, going back to the rare summoner, I would still say that Thaddeus Brood, unless you had a really good setup and a specific way to use Dalan, I would say for a new player, Thaddeus Brood is going to be your better pick and half the price. Okay. So now going on from that, we're going to mark Zerial out. That's a whole nother conversation. Good card, expensive, not as expensive as it was when it first launched, and it's the only dual splinter card available. So that's an interesting discussion in and of itself. Now, I'm just going to run it through here. Oh, I know I still have rares selected. Now, let's see here. The good solid buy would be Harclaw. Once again, the Corpse Fiend is a good rental until, the Fiends, there's a Fiend for every color, right? And they cost 0 mana to get out there. They're good to have to throw out there if you have one extra slot open and need an extra monster. Sometimes all it takes is one extra monster to go. So, Revealer is a decent card under specific circumstances. It's only 9 cents per BCX. And when cards are less than 10 cents a copy, I find it hard to say that it's a rental. Why not just buy it and just be done with it? So Revealer, Mage Necrosi is a good solid buy. Insidious Warlock, I would say go ahead and buy that too. Once again, under specific circumstances. But Harclaw is a definitely buy. Jin Murat, under specific circumstances, I would say that's a rental. Kane Haste is a good rental until you can figure out how to use them raw. And Lyra the Dark, I would say, is a good solid buy. So, take it for what it's worth. I'm generally going to advise on stuff that's like less than $1 per BCX is a good solid buy, because once you start renting them and then you have to go through the hassle of renting them every few days, and if they get canceled on you, in the way I think that if you're just buy them and be done with them. Now, once they get over, 50 cents to $1 per BCX, then you have to start thinking about it more, So some of these stronger cards are $8, $10, $12, $15 and up. Those fall into the rental situation. Okay, let's look at Dragon. Now, you'll notice there weren't too many dragons under common and rare. Most of them fall under Epic and Legendary. So most of these are going to be good, solid picks. Now, Lily Shield Paw really excels, is very popular, especially in the modern format. Oshur Constantia, well, that's not a summoner, but Lily is, I'm trying to see. Okay, so the epic is Thisba. Thisba is a good solid pick too. But once again, I think that, let's go back to, yeah. I'm still going to say that even though it's way more expensive than Thisba, I would go with Quixodevious. Quixodevious is almost as expensive as Lily Shieldpaw. I have limited experience with Lily Shieldpaw, but a lot of people rate her very highly, and I see her used in a lot of high-ranked matches. I rented this card out for a couple weeks, and the Archmage bot that I use in Wild prefers Quixodevious over it, but if you are playing in Modern, it's a completely different deal. So, but once again, due to the expense, I would say if you're going to go with this one, just rent it out until you get used to it and decide you want to spend that much money on either one of these. Dragon right up front when you first start playing is the hardest splinter to get into due to the cost. Okay, so good solid buys. Damphir Infiltrator, Twilight Basilisk, Naga Assassin, Jin Chihuahua, all good solid cards. Now, the rest of them are going to pretty much fall under rental category until you find ones that you really like. Okay, Chaos Dragon, I'd be hard pressed to say any of these are bad. Zyvax kind of falls towards the bottom. Agor Longtail, very good tank. Doesn't necessarily have to be a tank. It could be in the last slot too, because he's got that taunt. Carnage Titan, great in the second slot. Void Dragon, very popular, fast magic with Void. So I would say these first, not necessarily Runic Skyclaw, not a bad card, but much more expensive than Naga Assassin, Twilight Basilisk, Damphir Infiltrator, Jin Chihuahua. All good solid buys. The rest of them I think you'd want to rent up front to get used to before you go ahead and invest the money in it. Okay, now we have Life here, and Grandmaster Wraith, once again, is the legendary summoner here. Trying to wonder why I had so many cards up there, because I still had rare selected. That might have affected on that last batch what I was talking about. But so under Life, the legendary is going to be Grandmaster Wraith. And then the epic is going to be Ilthane. Now, both of these are good, solid cards, but due to the expense, I would say these are rentals right up front. And really, at this point, yeah, if I was hard pressed, I would say go with Ilthane if you're just buying one summoner. But this may be one of the splinters right off the bat that you just want to rent first for a little while, get used to either one of them. This one, Ilthane, gives a good solid bonus across the board with speed and return fire, and it only costs 4 mana to get out there. Okay. Now, as far as the other cards go, I would say the good solid buys are Jin Renova, Prismologist. Those are the buys, really. The rest are good, Dax Paragon comes in handy once in a while. I think his chief thing is you can get a little magic in there for very little mana there. Prismologist, pretty decent range, get some extra range damage, plus get the blast damage in higher mana matches. Adelaide comes in very handy, as you go up in level. Let's just look at her powers. You get the Resurrect at level 2, which a lot of people use to good effect. And once again, the Soul Fiend, 0 mana monster, always comes in handy, especially in lower mana matches where you may have one extra slot to fill. Jared Scar also. So there's not really any bad cards here. I would say if hard pressed, I would think the bottom of the barrel here would probably be Temporal Master. But like I said, we're at the cream of the crop as far as the suggested cards. As far as epics and legendaries go. So you're up here. I can definitely tell you that Jin Renova is worth a buy. Okay, right off the bat due to the price, and the rest you may just want to rent for a while and see which ones you want to buy. Now, last up is neutral. And when we're looking at neutral, like I said before in the last video, neutrals are usually more expensive like dragons are because they have a little bit more play value, because you can basically play them with just about any splinter there is, except for unless you had a game type of no neutrals, right? So good solid buy here is Uraeus. You can fit that in almost a lot of different, especially low mana hands, which are melee based. Get some good solid sneak damage in there. The rest of these are really going to be like rental recommendations. Magic of Chaos, Gym Meteor. Dr. Blight's a good, strong card, very high priced, but a good, strong card. And as you go up in rankings, you may consider buying one of those, but it's a heavy purchase. I haven't even bought one yet. So Spirit Hoarder is a pretty good value, sitting there with Triage. I do like Venator Kinjo, and Coral Lurker is one of the more popular, probably one of the most popular tanks you have there. Hard to hit, and let's look at the stats. So as you go up, say at level 2, you've got Taunt, you've got Dodge, and you've got Phase. So this thing is very hard to hit, in other words. And I'm clicking the wrong button there. Okay. So, and last but not least, Lux Vega. Very expensive card, and it's a totally different combination. It's a totally different topic, but very versatile summoner, very expensive, but it's a max level card. In other words, you get this if you buy one of these copies. It comes in. It comes in at level 4. Okay, it is a max level copy, and you don't have to buy multiple copies of it. So, yeah. Okay, so that's that. Overall, would I say buy a Lux Vega? Probably not. But in the big picture, if you step back, and by the time, like, I've been playing 2.5 years, right? And I have all my base level summoners up to level 6, which is the max for gold level. And plus I have other summoners to various levels. Once you start considering the price of all those, it will have quickly exceeded $598 or $600 that you can buy one of these Lux Vegas for. So am I saying go out and buy one of these right off? No. But if it would have been out and I would have bought it right up front, you can use that in a lot of different situations. Not all situations, but it does give a decent value compared to buying max level the rest. So anyway, with that said, this has been Bronze Dragon. I hope that this video has helped you a little bit with looking at the cards, and leave some replies if you have any questions, and I'll address them as they come along. Otherwise, I hope everyone on your side is happy and healthy, and I will see you on the flip side.